a lot of these things are preparing me to be a good father at some point in my life. And I think one of the biggest challenges that I perceive to happen is when I have kids, I'm curious how I will handle the challenge of not wanting your child to get hurt, but knowing that they must get hurt in order to grow in life. How have you handled that?
I'm actually pretty good with that one. Maybe because I've been hurt so much, and I also believe in my children.
Yeah.
You know, and I always say this even as I'm teaching, like as parents and as teachers, we're just holding space
Yeah.
for them to work out their things, to go through what they need to go through their struggles. You know, like I can't. All the students that I work with, I still work with students that have really traumatic things happen to them. All I can do is hold space. I can be there in their pain. As I said, children. Would I say something like children? Trauma is not the pain, it's being alone with their pain.
Mm-hmm.
Pain is part of life.
Mm-hmm.
And the Buddha said that even. Suffering is part of life. But can we be there with each other in their pain? And can we sit with their pain without trying to push it down or make it worse, and just be there? And that, I think that is the same thing with teaching and parenting, is you're just holding space. Because it's their life. Like, we want to guide them, but also it's their life. Like, they're their own being. It's just holding space.
And that sounds so loving. And how does that look when a child breaks their hand or maybe gets in a fight with someone? What does that look like from a mother's perspective? Is that asking them, hey, what happened here, and letting them describe their pain, or what does that look like?
I find that most people, even adults, are more physical than that.
Yeah.
It's the holding. Like, even my son, he's 12, and he does not want to hug but if I start wrestling him and BJJ, he does BJJ. If I start like in minutes, he's like, oh.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And then, I teach breath work.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many 80-kilo guys are like, could you come over and hug me? Like, we just want to be held. Like, we just want someone to hold us. And so I think physical touch is like one of the biggest gifts that we can give to our children. Attached, they're part of us, especially when they're young. Never push your kid into a bed down the hall. Like, sleep with your kids, hold them tight. When they're crying, hold them tight. When they're laughing, laugh with them. Like, be connected as much as possible, especially if they're going through a tough time. Sit next to them. I used to get lazy, right? I was tired. I was running a business and I had 2 kids, and they'd be having a problem. Like, what? And I'd go from here.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work. But if I would just walk over and sit next to them, what?
Yeah.
I can still be mad. The proximity, the comfort is so different.
It's so important. Yeah, I can just imagine that happening with the kid when there's a parent far away who's saying something versus a parent next to him. Like, you can tell I'm frustrated, but I'm here next to you and I love you.
Yeah, and acknowledge their feelings. That's one thing that I think often doesn't happen. Like, kids will wake up and say, I'm tired. What do parents say? You just slept 10 hours. That's not validating their feelings, I'm hungry. You just ate. Yeah, I'm still hungry. You know what I mean? Like, we have to validate our kids' feelings so that they can stay true to their intuition.
It's so.
We tell them what they feel is incorrect, then they don't trust themselves.
Yeah, and that's a total fault to give to a child, is if they start to mistrust themselves and they can't take risk when they need to be as an adult. And it's so interesting, in therapy, all it is validation. All it is validation. I'm going through this, and it's saying, it sounds like you're going through a hard time. It's like, fucking finally, someone said that. So I think that's a wonderful lesson to take from parenthood.
And parenthood is going to give you all the lessons that you don't want. Like,
from a parent's perspective.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was doing yoga for a long time before I had kids, and I thought I was spiritually evolved. And then I had kids, and I was like, going to go ahead and start at 0. Because it's like everything that you haven't worked on, every mirror, every shadow is like right here.
Do you think there's ever do you think it's possible to work through everything before you have kids? Or is it it's one of those things?
Have the tools.
Yeah.
People always say, just have the tools.
Yeah.
You just have to have the tools, because the stuff is always going to keep coming up. Different things are going to come up, and you just have to keep sharpening your tool belt.
Wow. And it feels like a lot of it is grace and silence and just sitting and validating. And when you get to moments of just like total frustration or whatever it is, how do you remove yourself? And by you, I mean me, but like, how do you remove yourself from that frustration that you have in the moment in order to remind yourself, hey, it's not anger, love is what you must direct.
Well, I'm not perfect. You know, sometimes I'm a pit bull with my kids. When I was a young mom, I used to lock myself in the bathroom. And the kids would be pounding on the door. I'm like, it's not safe for me to come out. Like, it's not safe for me to come out, because I was in such overwhelm, you know.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I was just in such overwhelm. So I literally used to lock myself in the bathroom and just take deep breaths or do whatever I had to do to regain myself. Like, because coming to your center, and this is, gosh, I really wish I would have known this when I was a young mom. And I think it was Gabrielle Bernstein said this, like, when you have kids, you have to regulate your nervous system, not only for yourself, but you have to regulate your nervous system for your kids. So if you are not calm and peaceful and they go off, you end up matching them, because their frequency wins. Like, the highest energy, you become that. I can't tell you how many times I became a 5-year-old. I'm like, what? And I know better. You know, I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I arguing? Like, what am I doing?
It's an argument about like pasta shapes or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. And I'm like, and I'm losing my shit over pasta shapes. And it's like, really? Because I wasn't regulated. I wasn't calm.
Yeah.
And, you know, I grew up in a very traumatic, unsafe environment with an alcoholic, physically abusive father. So I had a lot of anxiety and unsafety in my body. And I worked through a lot before I had kids. But I didn't realize, it's like, oh.
Damn it. Here we go again.
So staying calm, having the tools that you need to get calm is the key.
When you went through traumatic moments as a kid, how did the trauma manifest itself in your life?
Oh, yeah, I have a pretty dark past. I mean, I ran away from home when I was 18. I hitchhiked from Cleveland, Ohio to Florida, so 1,800 miles.
Holy cow.
Hitchhiking.
Holy cow. Wow.
So I walked out of the house and put my thumb out. I was like, I'm out of here. Like, I knew it was an unsafe environment. Yeah. So I'm a risk taker. I think that actually unsafe feels safe. Mm-hmm. And that for me is something I'm learning. Is like, how can I just stay and be? Yeah. Running is always safe for me, running away. So it showed up as running away. It showed up as drugs. It showed up as alcohol. It showed up as, you know, promiscuity. It showed up as anger, physically abusive relationships. I mean, you name it, I've been through it. You know, I mean, I used to have physically abusive relationships because I would just choose my father again, over and over again, until I healed that part of me. So yeah, it was yoga and all this stuff is, I don't know how I was so blessed to find this path, like, because there are people in my family that are still doing those things. You know, they're still in that physically abusive relationship. They're still doing the drugs, the alcohol. Yeah. Like, they've never jumped out. And I'm so grateful that I have found a path, a tool, so I can work through this stuff so I can move into a healthier way of being.
How did you find those tools?
I found yoga.
And how did you discover yoga?
I was in college for a degree with exercise physiology, and I had to take an extracurricular outside of college, which wasn't, you know, I don't even remember what we were doing in college, but, you know, basketball, running, lifting weights, all that kind of stuff. And so I had this really cute chiropractor, because I was into bodybuilding. I was training as a bodybuilder. And I had this really cute chiropractor, and he was doing yoga. So I was like, I'll do yoga.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I found yoga.
Well, thank God for the cute yoga chiropractor guy.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And then from there, I imagine you started to realize it wasn't just about the cute chiropractor. He was like, oh, okay, there's cool learnings within this. Yeah. Yeah. And so for those who don't necessarily have a cute chiropractor to look towards as a lighthouse, and they're in these situations, I guess how can we bring self-awareness into a situation that is trauma, that this is something that's unresolved, and life is showing me that I must resolve it.
How can we bring awareness?
Yeah, how can we bring awareness to this and know that that your circumstances might be trauma from your childhood that is manifesting in an abusive relationship or substance abuse?
Well, awareness, as Deepak Chopra says, is a birthplace of possibility, but to find awareness, that's different for everybody again, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's hitting rock bottom. Sometimes people are trying to save these people. I'm like, they got to hit rock bottom. They got to find it themselves.
Mm.
And sometimes it's the birth of a child. It's finding a new partner. I mean, everyone has a different level, a different way of waking up out of the slumber of misery.
Mm.
And so I don't know. I can't say. It's just like every person is so different, and their paths are so different. But if they're ready, if their soul is ready, they'll find it.
It'll happen.
Yeah. But if they're looking and they know that for me, it's always like someone's always looking. They're like, something's not right. Something could be more.
Yeah.
They find it.
Yeah. It's almost as if as soon as you invite that question in, then maybe that's the open door of there's things to look forward. And it's really wonderful when you think of any circumstance that you might be in that isn't favorable, and you realize it's not, hey, your fault. It's like, oh shit, I can take action and I can go look in the mirror and maybe give love. Feels like love is just always
Love is always the answer.
Love is always the answer, no matter what.
Well, Marianne Williamson said this really beautiful quote years ago, and I never thought about it. Every single thing we do, everything we do, is either an act of love or a cry for love.
Mm-hmm. I could very easily see that, because I think you can, thinking of things that I'll do that might be showy or whatever, and we live in an age of social media, and that in itself can be such a cry for love in many senses, and then an act of love might be using that same platform of highlighting someone else or something else or some practice. But yeah, it's really nice to think of it like that, because then you can bring space before you take action. You can bring the awareness before you take action and just say, what am I doing? Am I crying or am I giving?
Yeah, and also other people, when they come to you, you're like, that person is the most annoying person.
Yeah.
They just want to be seen. They just want to be heard. I mean, look at social media. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. We just want to be seen. I mean, my kids all day long. My son's skateboarding. He's like, Mom, watch. Okay. Watch. Like the same trick 100 times. He wants me to watch every single one. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. And when we didn't get attention as kids, like, we're just going to keep seeking it because we want to be validated. Yeah. Just like your therapist. Yeah. You pay someone $150 an hour to say, you're good. And you're like,
no way.
Yeah.
No, it's when you look back on the moment, the interaction between mom and child or father and child, and yeah, it is just like, hey, look at this, and you're so excited to show a trick or whatever it is, a frog that you might have caught, and all it is just seeing, and you're like, oh, that's wonderful. But it's so easy to get caught up in everything else and move away. And I think a lot of it seems to be generational, which it feels like that's like trauma can be passed on generational. And there's a thing I went through as a kid, and I dove into it and realized, holy cow, like my parental figure had gone through that same thing as a kid, and it wasn't conscious. It was inherited muscle memory, and and the only thing you can give is forgiveness and understanding, and know that when you bring awareness to whatever that is that might be generational, is that's where it stops. Yeah, it's really nice that whatever circumstance you are in, from an emotional pain or traumatic pain, is that you can always improve.